Should you pull for Paine? Her role is a debuffer, support, dispel, and cleanse. Her notable attacks: break attack, her skill 1, it is 6 HP attacks. It grants 2 levels of Dress Sphere for 6 turns. Dress Sphere upgrades Sword Dance, her EX, to Sword Dance Plus. Break attack also inflicts status break for 5 turns. That debuff lowers the enemy's speed down by 10%. Black Sky, her skill 2, it is 5 HP attacks, all being 50% splash, and it grants 2 levels of Dress Sphere for 6 turns. Sword Dance Plus, her EX, it is 6 AoE HP attacks. It increases break attack use by 1. It grants her buff wing power for 8 turns, raises the party's speed up by 10%, and it lowers the enemy's speed down by another 10%. Wild Throttle, her LD, it is a total of 8 HP attacks, with 2 of them being 50% splash. It is guaranteed to hit. It cleanses all parties' debuffs, and it dispels all enemy buffs. And finally, it grants 3 levels of Dress Sphere for 6 turns. Dark Shroud, her FR, like her LD, it is guaranteed hit, and it also cleanses all party debuffs as well as dispelling all enemy buffs, and it inflicts status break for 5 turns. Gullwing Rush, her BT, the effect lasts for 8 turns, in which all enemies receive HP poison by 1500% of Paine's attack every turn, and it has a very special effect to where when Paine or any allies to her left attack, it inflicts Mute Wing for 1 turn on all enemies. While this buff is active, they cannot use any HP attacks. And by the way, this debuff is stackable. And the other effect that her BT gives, when Paine or any allies to her right attack, it increases 1 level of leveled buff that they have, Pumice Feather, in which the max level is 9. And when a party member is at least on level 3, it gives them instant turn rate and consumes 3 levels. It's a bit complicated to explain, but once you get it, you'll figure it out eventually. Her force conditions: you get a 20% when you're attacking an enemy with status break, 30% when any buff or special effect is at least level 0, and a last 30% when the party buff count or the enemy debuff count is at least 10. Starting off with Paine's pros, the fact that her BT can give multiple people in the party instant turn rate, I think is very clutch, especially when you bring a very strong DPS unit and you want them to move as much as possible. With Paine's BT and giving them the possibility to move more, it's going to raise their damage up a lot higher. But her other side of the BT effect, the fact that you can constantly HP silence the enemy and the debuffs are stackable before the enemy even moves, freaking 5 turns of silencing on them. It's crazy. Given how crazy Paine's HP silencing is, it might negate the need for a tank altogether. When you have so many stacks on an enemy for silencing, they're likely never going to use an HP attack again for the rest of the fight. You might not even need to go for defense at that point. Third off, Paine's cleansing and dispelling, which are accessible from both her LD and her FR, it's fairly consistent. You know, it's not the most consistent thing in the world, but if you reach an HP threshold and they debuff your team, you have options for Paine in order to cleanse that. It's a very, very nice thing to have as a support unit. Now, along with that, despite the fact that Paine constantly HP silences the enemy with her BT effect, the nerfs that her kit still brings in terms of the enemy's attack and defense are still good. The bosses are still going to be squishier, they're still going to be weaker, and they're going to be slower, by the way. Need I mention that Paine also influences speed. Your party's going to move faster and the enemies are going to move slower. And last pro, this is something that I always love talking about, the fact that the FR conditions for her are easy. It's a warm welcome for any unit in my opinion. Now, moving on to Paine's cons. You have no healing or HP regen in her kit. As far as I've seen, Paine can do a lot of things as a support unit. She can cleanse, she can debuff, she can dispel, she can silence, she can give instant turn rate, but one of the few things she can't do is heal your team. You're gonna have to look elsewhere for that. And while it's not the shortest effect in the world, having 8 turns be your BT effect, but your burst also giving instant turn rate, Paine's burst effect might not last as long as you would expect. 8 turns, while it is completely doable, it's not the most. It's not a whole lot of turns you can work with. Ideally, when you have Paine on the board, even though she does tons and tons of damage due to her newest rework, you don't want her to be the one taking the most turns out of your party. You want that to be relegated mostly to your DPS unit. It's not that big of a deal when boss fights tend to be shorter, but for the longer dragged out ones, you might want to pick and choose where you're going to activate it. And finally, while I did say that the FR is easy, and it is easy, but if you cannot inflict status break on the enemy, which is one of Paine's main debuffs, the FR is going to suffer a lot. The FR is going to be very mediocre, and I wouldn't recommend using it. My pull rating for Paine's FR and BT is an S. She's fantastic. She's great. She's great. She's great. I love her. I love what utility she brings. She looks freaking cool in the game. Goth Princess, I'm here for it. And she's a very fun unit too. The way her BT works is one of a kind. If anything else, she's a very refreshing unit to have. I'm not sure if I'm going to have the luxury of building Paine's BT and FR, given, you know, the whole slew of broken units we've been having back to back. If you somehow missed units prior and you wanted someone that was still, you know, workable and is really good, Paine is right here.
Come here.
Anyways, that's the video. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you guys next time. Bye!